Welcome back to my South City Triceratops Walk-On Dynasty. If you did not watch the last episode, here is how the playoffs ended up finishing out. We are officially your national champions here in Season 4. But now we get to look past that game. We celebrated it, it was a lot of fun, but now we need to get ready for Season 5 to try to defend our national championship, and we have 195 recruiting points to do that. There is no way in hell I can use all of them, and since we won the national championship, we also get a free 5-star. The problem is none of the 5 stars that I was going after actually wanted to come here, so I think I've taken most, if not all of them, off the recruiting board, but we still have a few players here that I'm really excited about. We will get to that later in the video. But first, we're going to jump into some season stats. We start with star quarterback Curtis Burton, who threw the ball 300 times, completed 201 of them for almost 3,500 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. Eli Cox did come in a couple times this year, managed to throw 2 touchdowns, one of them in the national championship. Eli Cox will be in a competition to be our starting quarterback next season because Curtis Burton is a senior and will not be here. We had an absolutely insane season running the ball. Jack Overocker goes for 1,900 yards and 25 touchdowns. Curtis Burton goes for 1,200 yards and 16 more touchdowns on top of his, 31 passing touchdowns. So he accounted for 47 touchdowns this year. He was obviously a massive part of the offense, and Tyler Anderson even ran in for a couple. Our star receiver this year ended up being Adam Watkins. I believe he was a JUCO transfer, 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. Josh Bain, 600 yards and 7 scores. Donald Johnson got 4 touchdowns. Jack Overocker never got a receiving touchdown. Wesley McKinney didn't catch the ball a whole lot, but did find the end zone 6 times. Dustin Daniels got 4 touchdowns. Tyler Anderson caught 1, and Adrian Jordan caught 1 pass for a 9-yard touchdown that just happened to win the national championship. Leading the team in tackles is probably no shock to anyone, as that goes to Kellen Rice. Hopefully we return him. He is a junior and could leave, but at a 78 overall, I don't think he will, but I cannot guarantee anything. Tackles for loss goes to Jason Newby, a true freshman defensive end, and in sacks, Newby also got 10, Kellen Rice got 7, Shetley got 5, Starks got 5, and then Sean Smith got 2, and then the following players got 1. Defensive tackle Mickey Williams, free safety Chris Scott, and defensive back Rich Hall. That sack was actually in the national championship. And leading the team in interceptions this season goes to defensive back Brian Edwards, who came away with 3. Curtis Burton, Adrian Jordan, and Jarvis Nelson all got 2. And then Rich Hall, Kellen Rice, Sean Smith, and Michael Starks all came away with 1 interception. I believe this is the most field goal attempts I have attempted in this entire series so far, but Sean Smith will be leaving us with never having missed a single field goal, but his longest one is 44 yards, so he's not exactly great. I just never attempted long field goals with him. Sean Smith was also our punter while he was here, and I would say we have drastically improved on offense. His freshman and sophomore year, he kicked 58 and then 34 punts. The following year, he only kicked 8. This year, he only kicked 10, and we played an extra 3 games. Wesley McKinney ended up with a phenomenal season returning kicks. I believe he won the Jet Award. We will get to that in a minute, but he does have 3 kick return touchdowns, and then punt returns, we never returned one for a touchdown. I think we had a couple that were close, but never quite broke it. Leading the nation in QBR goes to James Lowry at Oklahoma and then Bubba Milosevic at Georgia, but Curtis Burton comes in 3rd in that area. And most passing yards, that goes to Aaron Young. Curtis Burton also comes in 3rd there. For most passing touchdowns, we're at least up here. Let's see, 5th place, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. He is 10th place on this list. I'm kind of fine with that. But John Woods threw the most at UAB. Leading the nation in interceptions goes to Ryan Wood. Hey, we're also top 10 in this apparently because I threw 15 of them. And then finally, the last one I really like to look at is the completion percentage, and that goes to Bubba Milosevic with 75% of his passes, but Curtis Burton is down here in 6th place with 67% of his passes. Jack Overocker apparently had the most attempts out of anyone in the country this season with 311. The most yards, Jack Overocker finishes 3rd. David Sanders ran for 1929, and Malik Bronson at Iowa ran for 1948. But for the most touchdowns, that easily goes to Overocker with his 25. And then what about yards per game? That goes to David Sanders with 160.7. Broken tackles, that's going to go to Ben Ncaa. I hope I said your name right. And then the most fumbles this year is going to go to Jalen Robinson, a running back at Georgia Southern. The way I run my offense, we are never really going to see any of our guys here in the top 10 for most receptions. But Blaze Watson caught 110 passes. Most yards goes to Dallas Smith. And the most touchdowns goes to Lionel Davis at Ole Miss, who caught 17 of them. Yards per game also goes to Dallas Smith. Now, we do make the list for the most drops this season because Adam Watkins had 11 drops this year, so he is tied for second place. Jamie Hill, an outside linebacker at Toledo, had 119 tackles to lead the country. Tackles for loss goes to Grant Harrell at USC. And sacks, that goes to Jason Newby, the true freshman defensive end. I like to see that. Most interception goes to Chad Tyson at Syracuse. And then can I see the most deflections? That's going to go to Jay Anderson at Texas. Forced fumbles, it's a tie between a few players here. Fumble recoveries, yeah, that's really all we need. What about defensive touchdowns? 2 players came away with 2, Patrick Carter and Chad Tyson. Our kicker was once again the most accurate one in the country. I don't know how this guy has 99% even though he went 26 for 26. That's a little bit ridiculous. Did he miss an extra point? Apparently, but that has its own little statistic over here. So yeah, I don't know how this guy didn't make 100% of his kicks at all. Wesley McKinney should easily run away with the Jet Award by getting the most return yards by about 500 yards and the most touchdowns. What about punt returns? Did we end up with the most yards there? No, we did not. That goes to Willie Utley, a free safety at Clemson. And there were a handful of guys that actually got a punt return touchdown. The Heisman winner was Trey Bell, the running back at Georgia. You can see Jack Overocker was at least on the ballot, but he only came in 4th this season. On the independent All-American team, we get Curtis Burton, Jack Overocker, and Adam Watkins all here. No one else on our offense, but Jason Newby is here at defensive end. Michael Starks makes it at outside linebacker. Kellen Rice makes it at middle linebacker. Our entire secondary is going to make it, minus our strong safety. But Sean Smith, Brian Edwards, and Ed Edwards all make it here. And then Sean Smith makes it at kicker. And then Wesley McKinney makes it as the punt returner. What about second team? Any one of our guys here? So far, it does not look like it. We do get James McBride, our right tackle. And we also get Jalen Shelley here at defensive tackle. Rich Hall makes it at corner. And then Scott Flanagan makes it at strong safety. So our entire secondary does make the awards list, just Flanagan's a second team. Now for the entire National All-American Award list, we have no one here so far on the first team. We do get Kellen Rice here at middle linebacker. I do like to see that. Wesley McKinney also makes the punt returner. And then second team, anyone here? Quickly scroll through, not seen anyone so far, and no, we don't. But what about the freshmen? We had a few freshmen play. Does anyone make it here? Jason Newby makes it. He did lead the nation in sacks, so that makes sense. But that's going to be the only one on the list. The Maxwell Award goes to John Woods. The Walter Camp goes to David Sanders. The Bednarik Award does go to Kellen Rice. The Nagurski Award goes to Harry Smith. The O'Brien Award goes to John Woods. The Walker Award goes to David Sanders. The Bolitnikov goes to Lionel Davis. The Mackey Award goes to Trent Brown. The Outland Award goes to Jeff Perry. The Remington goes to Jeremy Sledge. The Lombardi goes to Stephen White. The Butkus goes to Kellen Rice. The Thorpe goes to Chad Tyson. He did have 10 interceptions. I'm not really shocked about that. The Groza Award goes to Sean Evers, the kicker who made 26 of 26, but somehow not 100% of his field goals. And then the Guy Award goes to Trey Johnson, and the Jet Award does not go to Wesley McKinney. Are you kidding me? This guy had 1,000 kick return yards, 1 touchdown, 395 punt return yards, and a touchdown. McKinney comes in 4th with 3 kick return touchdowns. That is ridiculous. But now that all of that is out of the way, it is time to jump into the actual off-season part of this series. Before we start to look at the players leaving part, I want to jump into coach changes and see if either one of our coordinators got a new job. It looks like both of our coordinators actually got new jobs. Eric Bright is now our new offensive coordinator, and our new defensive coordinator is Matt Barnes, like the NBA player Matt Barnes. Our former offensive coordinator, Aaron Roderick, has apparently taken the job at Kansas State, so he will be their new head coach. And our former defensive coordinator, Mark Outlaw, has taken the job at Rutgers, so we may try to put both of those teams on the schedule. But now it is time to see how many players will be leaving. This will be the first players leaving stage where we actually lose some players that are key to our team. Defensive back Adrian Jordan was one of the JUCO guys I brought in that immediately had an impact for us. He's going to leave SCU with a total of 5 career receptions. He had 92 speed, 83 man, 83 zone, was probably the best defensive back we've had so far. Next up is wide receiver Dustin Daniels, and he has been taking a bit of a backseat the last couple of seasons. Like this year, he only had 233 yards, which is a career low, but had 4 touchdowns. He was like our wide receiver number 5, and the reason I actually threw to him a bit is because, yes, he was a walk-on player when we started, but he now has 99 catching and 99 awareness. I feel like it is going to really suck losing Manny Hughes. I don't throw to my tight end often, but he was actually pretty reliable for us. He has 74 catching, and that was one of the highest catching ratings when we started this series. He only managed to catch 1 touchdown his entire time here, but does finish with over 1,100 yards. It feels like Jarvis Nelson was one of our main defensive backs in this entire series, and he actually ended up being a backup player this year, but still finished with the most interceptions he had. He got 1 in his freshman year, got 2 this year, and then he is going to be leaving with 86 speed, 99 awareness, but really can't cover anything. Running back Ryan Hill was probably one of the more interesting stories we have had at SCU so far. He started out as a quarterback. I saw he was a decent running back and moved him over there, and then in 2020, Jack Overrocker got hurt. We found out that he was actually a pretty solid running back, ends up with 6 touchdowns that season. Really didn't find the field that much this year because Tyler Anderson came in and was just clearly a better running back, but he only has 71 speed. But really the main thing that made him elite, I would say, is that 83 spin move. He spun out a lot of people. Another fun story here was wide receiver Lonnie Whitfield. He actually started as a corner. We moved him over to receiver, I believe, after the first season or in the middle of the first season. But he ends up being one of our more reliable receivers in 2019. He didn't have any stats for this season. He got completely buried on the depth chart. Doesn't have the highest ratings, but was one of our main targets early on. I thought defensive tackle Mickey Williams made a lot more plays than he actually did. I thought I said his name a lot. I guess not. He only leaves with 5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. There is wide receiver Clint Barnes, who at one point was the fastest player on our team. You can see here in 2018 and 2019, he was one of our main targets. He doesn't register any stats for this season. Once again, another player that got completely buried on the depth chart. It looks like in 2020, he only caught 4 passes. He had a really bad problem with drops, but he's going to leave with over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Quarterback Josh Holland came in a few times in this series. One game against Old Dominion, he ended up breaking the record for passing yards in a single game. No idea what happened in that game, but he's going to leave with 16 passing touchdowns, 28 interceptions, but over 2,800 passing yards. One of the final players we're going to look at is wide receiver Wesley McKinney. He was probably our first, I would say, solidified star player. His first year here, over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. This year kind of took a backseat to Adam Watkins, who had a massive season, but he was still a really solid piece for us. Over 1,600 yards and 17 touchdowns here in his 2 years at South City. And then also on kick return, he did return 4 kicks, and I still feel like he was robbed of that Jet Award. And then finally, we have quarterback Curtis Burton. This guy was a JUCO athlete that I brought in, originally lined up at safety, because we thought quarterback Eli Cox was our answer. He got injured. Burton stepped in and played really, really well. We made the change. He finished the first season with 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And then this year, obviously a national champion, 31 touchdowns. Did throw a bit more interceptions though, but running the ball, he was a monster. 1,200 yards and 16 touchdowns. He is probably my favorite player we've had so far. Unfortunately, none of these guys are going to the NFL draft, which does not help our pro potential in recruiting, but I feel like a lot of these guys had pretty solid careers here, might get on a team as like an undrafted free agent or something, but I guess now we get to move on and get ready for Season 5. On this screen, let's see if anyone actually ended up getting drafted. No, they did not. But what about transfer requests? Do we get anyone in here? We get middle linebacker Dwayne Battle, who is a 54 overall. We might bring you in just because. You may not make the final team though. 72 speed, 75 acceleration, 69 tackle, 67 block shedding, 55 play rec. Hopefully if we actually keep you, you won't really see the field that much. Now for what I feel like most of you guys have been waiting for. We are at the recruiting stage of the offseason. You can see here I have 12 scholarships remaining. I've already added 13 players to the team, so let's go over who's been added already. The first player up is safety Jeremy Greer. He is only a 2-star recruit, but already a 70 overall with 80 speed, 88 acceleration, 73 tackle. Obviously not a ton of speed, but I think he can be a pretty good backup for right now. Then we have our brand new kicker and Derek Rivero, only a 2-star kicker, but he is a 67 overall, 73 kick power, 63 accuracy. Obviously not great attributes there, but is realistically probably the best kicker I could have landed in terms of who was interested. I know a lot of these players are not really jumping out to you guys, but I promise we will get to a few of those here in a minute. Then we have guard Matt Samuel, who is a 2-star recruit as a 64 overall guard. Then we get guard Travis Moore, who is also a 2-star guard at a 66 overall. Then we have corner Early Hawk, and one of the reasons I actually added this guy to the list is because of his name. I thought that was an amazing name for a corner, but he will come in as a 66 overall with 90 speed, 73 man. Probably not going to get a ton of playing time early on, but he might be able to develop into a solid player. The next player up is outside linebacker Freddie Roberts, another 2-star player. He comes in with 85 speed though, 71 tackles, 64 play rec, which isn't great, but 74 block shed. I don't expect him to have to start right away. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of centers that wanted to come here to South City, so we have to settle on center Dustin Toth, a 62 overall 1-star player, but as has 72 pass block, 67 run block, and 75 impact. I'm hoping we don't actually have to start him. We also ended up landing a 1-star tight end in Seth Avery. He's going to come in with 67 speed. I really don't know why I scouted this guy. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. He can't catch. He's not that fast. Is he at least big? He's 6'6". Maybe a decent backup, and by like his senior year could be a solid player. But now we get to dive into the new fun players. Wide receiver Matt Stevens, a 4-star player out of Garden Grove, California. He comes in with 94 speed, 77 catching, 82 route running, 70 release, 74 catching traffic. I think this guy is going to be a pretty big player for us. The next player up is Josh Coleman, a JUCO transfer out of Aiken, South Carolina. He will come in with 86 speed, 80 acceleration, but 81 throw power and 77 throw accuracy. He might be our new quarterback. There is another player higher up on the list that we have not actually got committed yet that I really want to put at quarterback, but we have not landed him, so this guy is kind of my emergency backup should I need him. But if he can't play quarterback, he's apparently a pretty solid running back. The next players up are the two I am most excited about in this class. The first one is defensive end Aaron Wright, a JUCO transfer out of Oakdale, Minnesota. He will come in as a 79 overall with 83 speed, 83 acceleration, 83 play rec and block shedding, 82 power move. I think this guy is going to provide a lot of pressure off the edge for us. But then we get to my favorite player in the class, and that is going to be defensive end Maurice West, a 4-star player. He comes in as a 78 overall, not quite as fast as Aaron Wright, but does have 75 speed, 85 acceleration, 81 block shed, and then 83 tackle and play rec, 80 hit power. I think this guy is going to develop into a complete monster for us. The next few players are guys I want to get to really just cap off this class. We have wide receiver Jeff Taylor, a JUCO transfer. He would come in as a 78 overall for us. And then another JUCO, and Andy McMillan. Right now we are really winning him. He would come in with 91 speed, 69 catching, so he can't really play receiver, but he does have 80 man coverage, 83 zone. I think this guy would make a really good corner for us. And then we have wide receiver Matt Yates, a 4-star receiver with 88 speed. Not great catching, but does have really good route running. We just might not be able to rely on him too much. But then we have the final player I think I want in this class, and that is athlete Keith Hayes, a 4-star athlete with 92 speed, 80 throw power, 84 throw accuracy. This guy would add an element to our offense that even Curtis Burton couldn't. This guy is incredibly fast. And now you can see that I've thrown 11,000 points into him. We are in 3rd place right now. If we can't land him though, we do have Josh Coleman to play quarterback or Eli Cox, whichever one ends up looking better. If you guys remember in the last offseason, I managed to get absolutely nobody in the recruiting stage, so I'm really hoping that doesn't happen again. Well, we missed Matt Yates by 50 points. He commits to North Carolina. And then Jeff Taylor, we were apparently not even close to, about 1,600 points away. However, we do land athlete Andy McMillan, but now for the big one of the class, and Keith Hayes has committed to South City, and we did not need to put near as many points as we did, but I am glad that we got him. And we end up as the number 69 ranked recruiting class, which I guess is solid considering we've been finishing like dead last every single season. Who got the most 5 stars though? Apparently Illinois comes away with the number 1 recruiting class. I can definitely say I never expected Illinois to be the number 1 team on that list, but now let's go ahead and jump to position changes. And we have 3 athletes to sort out here. Josh Coleman is just a sophomore, but we know that Keith Hayes is going to be moving over to quarterback where he is a 77 overall. Pretty easy decision for us. Looking at our corners, it is not a very pretty sight. We do get Early Hawk, who will probably actually end up on the field a little bit, more than I really anticipated. I didn't know we were going to be that short at defensive back, but Andy McMillan will be moving over to corner where he is a 76 overall. And then there's Josh Coleman, who was the guy that I said we could really put at quarterback if we absolutely needed to. He is a 75 overall quarterback, running back, a 69 overall receiver. I think for right now, we're going to move him over to quarterback, which does make our quarterback room look a little bit stacked right now with quarterback Eli Cox, Keith Hayes, and Josh Coleman. We'll try to figure something out there. And now it is time for my personal favorite part of the offseason, the training results. Let's see how much better or worse everyone got. At quarterback, Eli Cox goes up to an 80 overall. He will compete for the starting job as of right now. He gets up to 81 throw power and 75 throw accuracy. Running back Jack Overocker gets +4 to his overall. He doesn't get any speed, gets some awareness, +4 to break tackle, +4 to elusiveness. What about his spin move? That goes up to a 95. I already feel like I spammed that a lot this year, and it's going to be spammed a lot more. Now, we only have 3 wide receivers from last season that are returning, which is a really low amount, but Donald Johnson goes up to a 79 overall. Adam Watkins goes up to a 78. Josh Bain remains a 69 overall. I really hate to see that. Bain, I felt like, had a pretty solid year. Let's see what everyone's catching rating went up to. Donald Johnson up to an 86. Spectacular catch up to a 77. But Adam Watkins up to an 80 in spectacular catching. Catch in traffic 76 and 70. Donald Johnson might end up being one of our more reliable receivers this season. Unfortunately, tight end is not going to be a very pretty situation. That is definitely one position I'm going to have to scout heavily going into next year. Now, along the offensive line, Matt Miller goes up to a 71 overall. Our left guard goes up to a 75. Our center is a 55. Yeah, center might not be a pretty situation this year. Right guard, Daryl Alvarez up to a 74. And then we have no right tackle on the roster, apparently. At defensive end, though, Jason Newby goes up to an 80 overall. I absolutely love that. What is his block shedding now? Did that go up at all? He gets +1 to tackle, 3 to hit power. Where's his block shedding? That goes up to an 81. What about right end? That's Matt Johnson up to a 65, but I will probably have true freshmen starting there. Then defensive tackle Jalen Shelley goes up to a 75 overall going into his final year. He's been pretty solid for us, I would say. I'm not going to say good, definitely not great, but up to a 94 tackle, 76 hit power, 80 power move, 81 finesse, and then block shedding remains a 75. Well, it sucks to see that Michael Starks actually got a little bit worse now, but he shouldn't have to play defensive end. He's had to play defensive end the last 2 seasons. I can finally put him back at outside linebacker. Middle linebacker Kellen Rice goes up to a 79. Right outside linebacker Isaiah Sims up to a 77 going into his final season. I'm going to have an entirely new linebacking core after this year because all 3 are seniors. That's not great. Well, just like the receivers, we only have 3 corners returning this season, but Brian Edwards up to a 79, Rich Hall's a 70, Sean Smith is also a 70. They got a little bit faster. What about man and zone coverage? That's really the thing I am concerned about here. They got a little bit better at tackling, which I guess is fine. Man coverage, well, zone coverage, Brian Edwards got +7. No one really got that much better at man. These 2 didn't improve at all. Sean Smith +1, and then Sean Smith also got 2 to zone coverage. Well, safety Ed Edwards got a little bit worse. Chris Scott may actually get a chance to start here. He is a little bit faster, has more acceleration, has more awareness. What about play rec and zone coverage? I really need to see stuff like that. And Chris Scott can actually catch. Ed Edwards dropped a lot of interceptions last year. Apparently, Edwards can also play quarterback if we needed that to happen. Tackle, he's an 84. He's a 73. Hit power, Chris Scott's a lot higher. But we need to see play rec, and that is absolutely awful. A 55, and he cannot cover at all. Chris Scott, why are you a safety? You should be a linebacker, which is actually where he's played the last couple seasons. And then at strong safety, Scott Flanagan is a 64 overall. So maybe, just maybe, both of you will start, and one of you is going to have to be a strong safety. But that is how much better everyone that was on the team last season got. I'm really excited to see Jason Newby get +5. He might develop into something really, really good for us. And Jack Overocker is now listed as our best player considering Michael Starks lost 2 overall points. And we don't even have to cut anyone this year because I lost a lot of players, some of them former walk-ons, and did not recruit enough players to actually replace all of them. And we actually get 2 more walk-on quarterbacks. I really hope neither one of you have to ever see the field. I'm going to say the same thing I said last offseason. I thought about adding this team to a conference, but I really, really like the ability to schedule whoever I want and not be locked into a conference schedule. So that's why we're still not going to touch any of the conferences. I know in the last offseason video, I made the schedule in that episode. I'm not going to do that this year. You guys will see the schedule in week 1 of season 5. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you next time.